The Oracle and the Serpent Throne Part 3. Chapter 16. The Oracle walks alone. They reached the edge of the sky spire before nightfall. It wasn't marked on any map. It couldn't be, because it didn't exist in the world as others knew it, only in memory, flame, and celestial permission. From a distance, it looked like a crumbled mountain. Closer, it revealed itself as an ancient stairwell carved into the blackest stone, spiraling upward toward nothing. The sky above it churned. The stars were gone. Only fractures remained, like spider webs made of broken light. And at the summit, just barely visible, a great arc of silver links hanging across the air. The chain of heaven in its truest form. A constellation. A machine. A cage. "We'll go together," Kassai said, jaw set. But Ilyara shook her head. "I have to go alone." "Ilyara." She placed her fingers over his lips. "This isn't your burden. You carry the flame. I carry the sky. We're both weapons, Kassai, but this is my battlefield." His hands clenched. "But what if you don't come back?" She smiled, soft and sad. "Then burn the world until they answer for it." She turned and began to climb. The ascent was endless. Each step pulsed with memory. Her own? Or another oracle's? She couldn't tell. She saw flashes, visions bleeding into reality. A girl in white robes running from the tower. A chain being hammered in the heavens by faceless gods. A woman, herself, breaking a mirror made of stars. Her cracked moonstone throbbed at her throat. The higher she climbed, the colder it became, until breath no longer formed. The wind screamed. But she kept going. Because the truth waited at the top. And it was time to look it in the face. At the summit, she stepped into nothing. A platform of starlight formed beneath her feet, each step burning white-hot with her presence. Before her, the chain of heaven stretched across the sky. Not metaphor. Not myth. A real thing. A loop of living silver links that hummed with power, wrapped around the world's truth, keeping time frozen and fate obeyed. She stepped toward it. And it shuddered. The sky pulsed once. A seam split open. And from it, a figure emerged. It wore robes made of constellations. Its face was her own. Older. Wiser. Wrong. It spoke with her voice, but cold, mechanical. "Ilyara of the Ninth Seal. You were meant to witness, not to rewrite." She stared, shaking. "What are you?" "I am the memory of obedience. The echo of the sky as it was written. The part of you that accepted silence." Ilyara's breath caught. "Then I'm here to end you." The chain behind the figure pulsed, and links began to crackle, ready to close, to bind her, to erase her name. But Ilyara stepped forward. "You rewrote the stars once to hide the flame. Now I'll reopen them to bring it back." The figure raised a hand. The chain lashed forward, silver lightning aiming for her chest. Ilyara ripped the cracked moonstone from her neck, screamed, and shattered it against the starlit floor. The chain hit her chest and broke. Not her. It. The world exploded in silence. Light flooded the heavens. The chain fractured into pieces, links falling like dead stars. The false oracle figure screamed and vanished in smoke. And Ilyara, still standing, held the last link of the chain in her hand. It melted into silver flame and became a key. Somewhere below, Kassai felt the sky scream. And he knew. She had done it. She had walked alone, faced what no one else could, and returned not as an oracle, but as a rewriter of fate. When she descended the spire, her eyes glowed with starlight. Her voice hummed with quiet power. The wind obeyed her now. Kassai stepped forward. "Did it break?" he whispered. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just held up the silver key. It was never a prophecy. It was a prison. And now, we walk free. The final gate awaited. And the vault beneath the world was stirring. Chapter 17. The Rebellion of Ash. Kyra burned. Not with fire, yet, but with tension, thick and electric, like the air before a storm. In the wake of Ilyara's descent from the sky spire, something had shifted. Even those who didn't understand what had happened in the heavens felt it. A tremble in the bones, a pulse in the sand, the quiet cracking of centuries-old chains. News traveled faster than birds. The chain of heaven had fractured. The oracle had returned with stars in her eyes. The sky itself had recognized her defiance. And in the city of Kyra, where rebels whispered through the stone, and ash-blooded flame-bearers prayed to forgotten gods, people began to gather. Kassai stood in the shadow of the old gate, watching the smoke rise from temple guard towers. It was no longer subtle. The chain had begun to tighten its grip. Patrols tripled. Curfews snapped into place. High Seeker banners were draped across the water bridges, and the temple's mechanical sandbirds circled overhead like silver vultures. "You're thinking about burning them," Maare muttered beside him. He didn't deny it. "I'm thinking about whether they'll burn when I want them to, or when the fire decides to speak for me." Her expression darkened. "It's time." He turned. "We do this loud." Maare smirked. "Is there any other way?" Underground, in the labyrinth beneath the city, Ilyara stood before the rebels. Her presence had changed. Her once warm eyes now held threads of starlight. The silver key forged from the broken chain hung from a cord around her wrist, faintly glowing. She raised her voice, calm but carrying. "They told us the stars were the future. They lied. The stars are mirrors. And today, we show them who we really are." Cheers rang out. Not blind devotion, but raw belief. Kassai stepped beside her, flame flickering at his fingertips. "I'll take the East Tower." "Maare, North Bridge." "Ilyara." She raised her head. "The temple's Hall of Records. If there's any truth left to steal before the sky rewrites it, that's where it will be." Maare cursed. "You'll be surrounded." Ilyara smiled faintly. "I've already survived the sky. A few swords won't scare me." At sundown, the rebellion began. Quietly, at first. A gate left unlocked. A priest knocked unconscious. A holy torch turned sideways to signal across rooftops. Then the bell rang. The temple bell. The one that had been silent for decades. It rang not for judgment, but for freedom. The city erupted. Rebels poured from the underlayers of Kyra like water bursting through stone. Street vendors armed with knives. Children with flares. Old flame bloods who hadn't conjured heat in years let their palms smoke again. Kassai leapt across rooftops with 2 serpent-marked fighters at his back. These tower guards tried to raise their weapons. But Flame spoke first. A wall of fire danced upward, controlled, elegant, his. The tower fell. Ilyara slipped through the temple garden, her cloak blending with the vines. She moved like breath, like memory. The Hall of Records stood unguarded, too sacred, too secret. But she knew better. Inside, she found the vaults already glowing. The sky glyphs on the walls reacted to her, opened for her, and on a pedestal of white stone sat a mirror etched with starlight. Her own face stared back, but not just hers. Thousands of versions. Different eyes, different skin, different scars. All her. All the oracles they'd erased, lies rewritten so the chain would never break. She smashed it, not in rage, but in ritual. Each shard fell with a sound like falling stars. And in that silence, the glyphs on the wall dimmed. A truth undone. Outside, fire met steel. The chained soldiers fought with precision, chanting sacred formations. But they were trained to fight rebels. Not believers. Not flameborn. And not a skybreaker with fire in his blood. Kassai moved like a storm. Controlled. Relentless. He didn't scorch the city, he wielded the flame like a blade. A serpent coiled around his spine. But the fire was growing. Inside him. Too fast. Too much. Maare saw it first. He's not holding it back. Ilyara returned just as the second tower fell. She found him surrounded in the square, breathing heavily, eyes glowing too bright. "Kassai." He turned, and the fire snapped. For a moment, flames licked the edges of his cloak. His fingertips sparked. The sand began to glow. And he whispered, "I can't stop it." She didn't hesitate. Ran to him. And kissed him, fiercely, fully, like tethering a falling star. His hands clutched her. The fire surged. Then stilled. Not extinguished, but tempered. By her. All around them, the rebels cheered. Not for war, but for witness. Because that night, they didn't just see a prince of flame. They saw the return of the Serpent Throne. But in the dark tower of the temple, General Arma stood at her map table, watching the sky split further. A 4th link fell from the chain. She smiled coldly. "Let them burn. I'll be waiting at the vault." Chapter 18. A crown of sand and fire. The throne wasn't hidden. It was waiting. The storm had passed. Kyra's rebellion still smoldered. Temple banners lay in ruins, and the chain's guard forces had retreated to the high district walls. But now, a strange stillness settled over the city. The people waited. The stars waited. And in the red glow aftermath of battle, the fire inside Kassai did not sleep. He stood barefoot on the broken steps of the Hall of the Crownless, once a ruin sealed by decree of the temple, now unearthed by rebel hands. The structure jutted from the sand like a half-sunken memory, columns shaped like serpent coils, obsidian carved with ancient names that no longer existed in any record. At its center was the throne. Simple, dark stone veined with red. A great serpent carved around its base, and above it, a hollow arc where once a crown had hung. It radiated power. But it was not alive. Not yet. Ma'are watched from the shadows. This is where the first flamebearers were anointed, she said to Ilyara. Before the chain corrupted their rituals. Before obedience replaced inheritance. Kassai stepped slowly toward the throne. Every footstep burned faint red glyphs into the stone floor. He didn't sit. He just stood before it, the fire in his veins pulsing louder with each breath. And then it spoke. Not in words. Not even in flame. But in memory. A sudden torrent rushed through him, images, sounds, pain. The execution of the last serpent queen, crowned in gold and dragged through the river. A child screaming as fire was sealed inside him with cold iron. 1,000 voices whispering he will return, and he will burn what could not love him. Kassai fell to one knee. His chest heaved. The fire surged, begging to be let loose. Ilyara ran to him, dropping beside him. Kassai, look at me. His skin had begun to glow, not like light, but like magma, veins of fire etched across his arms, throat, chest. I can feel them, he gasped. Every king, every traitor, every drop of flame they buried. It wants me to be them all. She cupped his face. You are not their crown. The throne wants a tyrant. Then don't sit. He looked at her, really looked, and his hands gripped hers like an anchor. Then, slowly, he stood, walked to the throne, and placed a hand on its armrest. The fire around him calmed, not gone, but subdued. And then, he turned away. I don't want it, he said. I'll carry the fire. I'll fight. But if I sit, it becomes theirs again. A hush fell over the hall. And then the throne cracked. Not shattered. Not destroyed. But split down the center, as if exhaling after centuries of silence. From the break, a single ember rose. It hovered in the air and floated toward Kassai's palm. It burned his skin. He let it. The ember became a mark. A small, glowing serpent curled beneath his collarbone. The true inheritance. Not the throne, but the freedom from it. Ilyara stepped beside him. He turned to her, eyes soft, clear, even amid the heat. Then burn with me, he said, echoing her words from the ziggurat. She smiled, took his hand. I already am. The rebels knelt. Not to worship, but to witness. Not a king, not a god, but the man who had walked away from the fire and come back with the truth. Outside, the sky cracked again. The fifth link of the chain of heaven fell. And in the shadows of the high temple's final tower, General Arama stared at the stars and whispered, You can turn from the throne, flameborn, but you'll have no such mercy when you face me. Chapter 19. The final eclipse begins. The sun began to bleed. Not in myth, not in prophecy, but in real time. They called it the final eclipse, a celestial alignment that hadn't occurred in over 2,000 years. The ancient scrolls described it as the moment when Mother's Eye, the largest of the moons, would pass directly in front of the sun for 9 full minutes, casting the world in red-gold twilight. The last time it happened, the Serpent Throne fell. This time, it might rise again. Ilyara felt it before anyone. A pressure behind her ribs. A humming in the bones of her wrists. A subtle shift in the angle of the stars themselves. They were not just watching anymore. They were waiting. The rebels gathered in the shadow of the broken hall, where Kassai had refused the throne. Ma'are laid out the map on a scorched high cloth. Every route was underlined in red ash. The vault is buried beneath the temple of lightless flame, she said. Half a day's march across open desert. Suicide, a younger rebel muttered. Only if we hesitate, Ilyara said, stepping forward. Her voice was clear, her eyes still gleaming faintly with starlight. She now carried both the key forged from the shattered chain and the last surviving temple glyph etched in silver across her wrist. Kassai stood beside her, his fire coiled, controlled. I'll draw their forces east, he said. Split them. Let Ilyara and the key reach the vault. Ma'are glanced between them. You realize if either of you fall, we lose everything? Ilyara met her gaze. We lost everything a long time ago. This is just us finally deciding what we're willing to take back. The march began under twilight. The sky dimmed, clouds parted, and high above the desert, Mother's Eye began to slide across the sun. The final eclipse had begun, but not everyone was caught off guard. General Arma stood atop a wind-scarred cliff 2 miles from the temple, flanked by 6 elite seekers, each masked, each sworn by blood to the chain's final oath. Before her, a massive sandstone mirror reflected the battlefield in perfect clarity. She smiled. "They're moving exactly as predicted." A seeker knelt beside her. "Shall we intercept the flameborn?" Arama shook her head. "No. Let him burn." She touched the hilt of her blade, a long silver curve inscribed with the chain's original vow. "We take the girl, and we end the sky's betrayal forever." Midway through the march, the sky turned red. Not dusk, not fire. Eclipse. And with it, they came. Seekers dropped from the cliffs like shadows with wings, ropes, talismans, and star steel blades in hand. Their chants echoed through the canyon like war prayers. "Obedience is light. The chain is law. Erase the oracle. Bind the flame." Chaos erupted. Rebels scattered. Dust kicked up in golden clouds as the two sides collided in the canyon pass. Kassai turned, blade already alight with searing flame. Ilyara gripped her dagger, but her eyes never left the ridge where Arama descended on horseback, her pale sand steed cloaked in black silk. The ash-eyed general had arrived. Their eyes met across the battlefield. Ilyara's heartbeat slowed. Everything went quiet. Then, Arama charged. Kassai started toward her, but Ilyara threw out a hand. "No. She's mine." The two women met in the heart of the storm. Steel rang against star steel. Ilyara ducked low, slicing upward, but Arama moved like liquid shadow, twisting and slamming her back with the flat of her blade. "You were my brightest pupil," Arama said, circling her. "You were meant to be the chain's voice. A vessel, not a spark." Ilyara stood, bloody lip and all. "Then you shouldn't have taught me how to listen." Arama struck again. Ilyara dodged, but barely. The wind howled, kicked up by the growing firestorm around them. The sky above turned from red to deep violet. The sun vanished fully behind the moon. The world darkened. And in that eerie stillness, Kassai roared. A wall of flame burst forth, not at Arama, but around Ilyara, separating the two. Kassai landed beside her, breathing hard. "She'll kill you." "She already tried," Ilyara rasped. The fire flared brighter. Kassai's skin shimmered with molten glyphs. "Then let's finish this together." The flame and starlight merged. In a breathtaking pulse of silver and gold, Ilyara raised the key. The vault's call echoed through the canyon like thunder beneath the skin. The sand beneath their feet began to split. The ground trembled. And from beneath the desert, the vault awakened. Far above, the sixth link of the chain fell from the sky like a comet. General Arama watched it descend, eyes full of rage, and whispered, "If the gods won't stop them, I will." Chapter 20. The Vault Beneath the World. The desert cracked open like a split heart. Where the canyon floor had once been solid stone, there now yawned a vast spiral of burning glass and molten sand, descending into the dark like a wound that never healed. From the center rose a column of white fire, silent and spinning. It didn't burn the air. It burned time. Kassai stepped forward first. The mark beneath his collarbone glowed, responding to the vault's pull. Ilyara followed, the silver key pulsing in her palm. Together, they descended into the hollow spiral, past obsidian statues and forgotten pillars half buried in gold ash. Glyphs along the walls glowed faintly, not with fire, not with starlight, but with something deeper. Memory. They entered the first chamber, a round hall etched with 9 burning rings, each one representing a different era of the world. Ilyara gasped. The flame didn't come after the stars. It came first. Kassai traced a finger along a mural of a figure crowned in serpents, their hand outstretched to a woman who looked like Ilyara. But this was thousands of years old. "How can this be me?" She stepped closer. "It's not just you. It's what you carry. The memory they couldn't erase." At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal carved from black stone. Resting on it was a bowl of living flame, and beside it, a mirror of still water. One reveals the truth through pain, the other through reflection. Ilyara reached toward the fire. Kassai caught her wrist. "Wait." His voice shook. "I think this is the test." She frowned. "What test?" He looked at her. "Which of us opens the vault?" Silence. The room pulsed faintly. Then the wall shifted, and a symbol appeared in flame above the pedestal. Two intertwined sigils, one of flame, one of star. Ilyara read it aloud. Only the joined may wake what the gods buried. Kassai took a breath. So we do it together. They reached out, her hand over the mirror, is over the flame, and pressed down. The vault shuddered. Light exploded from beneath the pedestal. The walls peeled back, not physically, but reality itself bending to reveal a vast spiral staircase descending into nothing, lined with stone teeth and burning constellations. A voice rose from below. Do you seek truth or vengeance? Ilyara answered without hesitation. Both. They stepped down. Each level was older than the last. They passed the names of kings lost to time, priesthoods that no longer existed, even temples that had been erased from every map, the hidden orders of the chain, before they bound the stars. And at the bottom, they found it. The final chamber. A circle of thrones. Empty. 9 in all. Each throne represented a force. Flame, wind, water, shadow, moon, sun, mind, beast, and star. Only 2 glowed. Flame, star, and in the center, hovering above a pool of fire. A crown, but not solid, not golden. It was made of intertwined light, serpent coils and arcs of silver, constantly shifting. Alive. Kassai stepped forward. But the flame flickered violently. It rejected him. He stumbled back, breathing hard. I'm not enough. Ilyara stared at the crown, then at the thrones. She understood. The crown isn't for a king. Kassai looked at her. It's for the balance. For what was lost when the chain rewrote the world. She stepped toward it. And as she did, her body lit with starlight. Not bright, but constant. Calm. The fire around the crown stilled. And the throne of star lit fully. Kassai, seeing it, stepped forward again, and this time, the flame throne accepted him. Together, they reached out. Not to take the crown, but to free it. Their hands touched its base. And the world split open. A vision overtook them both. The gods creating the chain not to guide, but to control. The fire-born kings rising in resistance. The oracles breaking from obedience. And the final betrayal, when the last oracle bound the flame into a bloodline to keep it from becoming divine. Kassai gasped. My ancestors, they weren't villains. They were guardians. Ilyara nodded, breath shaking. And the temple didn't protect the future. It stole it. They opened their eyes. The crown was gone. In its place hovered 2 things. A ring of silver fire, small enough for a finger. A sigil of flame, shaped like a serpent sleeping in a circle. Choice. Not destiny. Not fate. Choice. Ilyara picked up the ring. Kassai took the sigil. Their hands met. And the vault whispered. Asterisk, the world begins again. Not with gods, but with those who remember what they tried to forget. Asterisk. Above ground, the sun began to return. But the sky was not the same. The 7th link fell from the chain of heaven. And this time, the stars didn't replace it. They let it fall. Chapter 21. The General and the Fire. She came alone. No fanfare. No army. Just silence. And the sound of her sand-wrapped boots descending the vault's spiral stair, one deliberate step at a time. General Arma had once been called the sky's blade, unflinching, incorruptible, forged in prophecy. Now her name was whispered with fear, her loyalty absolute, her soul sealed in silver vows. She had hunted rebels, extinguished flameborn heirs, and erased oracles who saw too much. But Ilyara had been the one she raised, and Kassai was the one she swore would never rise again. She reached the lowest chamber. Kassai and Ilyara stood at the center, surrounded by the remnants of the ancient circle of thrones, now broken, dimmed, and silent. The silver ring still glowed on Ilyara's hand. The serpent sigil pulsed against Kassai's chest like a second heartbeat. The air was thick with truth, and Arma stepped into it like ice into fire. I warned you, she said, her voice a blade unsheathed. The chain does not forgive. Ilyara turned slowly. She looked different now. Her hair was unbound, caught in soft waves. Her skin shimmered faintly from where the vault had kissed her. She no longer carried fear. She carried certainty. You trained me to obey, Ilyara said. But you also taught me how to see. And what did you see, child? Ilyara stepped forward. That obedience isn't loyalty. It's fear wearing robes. Kassai stepped beside her, fire flickering along his forearms. I won't let you take her. Arma smiled cold, sharp. Boy, I'm not here to take her. I'm here to burn everything you just set free. She raised her hand, and 6 silver glyphs flared into the air behind her. The final chain. It wasn't a weapon of steel. It wasn't soldiers. It was a spell built to rebind the stars if the vault ever opened. And she was already casting it. Ilyara reacted first. She raised the silver ring, and it glowed violently, pushing back against the glyphs with a force of memory. The vault trembled. Arma staggered. But she didn't stop. Kassai's fire surged. The serpent mark on his chest ignited, lines of flame blooming across his skin in controlled spirals. His eyes burned red gold. The chamber's murals responded, lighting with fire. The Serpent Kings were watching again. He stepped forward. Arma. She turned. His voice was steady. This ends with you walking away, or burning with your gods. She laughed. Not mockingly, but tired. There's no walking away, she said. Not for me. Not for anyone who believes the stars should still mean something. She pulled a curved blade from her back, one Kassai recognized. It was his brother's, taken the day of the massacre. His vision blurred. You killed them. Her face didn't change. They were too powerful, too wild. They would have torn the world apart. You did that yourself. Then the fire snapped. Kassai leapt. They collided in the space between thrones, flame against steel, prophecy against rebellion. Arma was fast. He was faster. She struck high, he ducked low. She twisted, slicing a line across his ribs. He roared, caught her blade in one hand, letting it burn through his palm and burn back. Ilyara watched, torn. The spell was still weaving itself in the air. If Arma finished the chant, the chain would seal itself again. She stepped into the center of the glyphs and threw the ring upward. It exploded into a sphere of silver memory, casting visions through the chamber like lightning. The day Ilyara was branded. The night Kassai's family burned. Arma holding a newborn and whispering, I'll raise her strong. And silent, the general froze. She saw herself. All of it. And her knees buckled. Kassai stood over her, fire in both hands. She looked up, chest heaving. Well, she hissed. Do it. Be what I tried to prevent. He stared. The flame flickered in his palms. Then, he let it go. The fire dimmed. He turned. You were right about one thing, he said. We don't need another tyrant. Ilyara walked over and knelt beside Arma. You made me, she said softly. But I made my own name. She reached forward and cut the silver glyphs from Arma's skin with a blade of starlight. The chain bonds broke. The spell died. The rebellion lived. Outside, the 8th link fell from the chain of heaven. And not a single star rose to replace it. Later, as dawn crept across the desert, Kassai and Ilyara stood at the vault's edge. The world was still. The chain was broken. But the cost was not yet clear. She'll come back, Ilyara said. Let her, Kassai replied. This time, we don't fight alone. Chapter 22, The Children of the Flame. The desert was quiet. Not dead. Not empty. Just still. As if the world had finally exhaled. Days passed since the fall of the vault's final seal and General Arma's defeat. The chain's glyphs faded from the sky like old bruises. The stars returned, not in order, not in chains, but in wild, scattered constellations that no priest could name. No one ruled them now. They moved as they pleased, just like the people below. Kyra stirred to life. Where once there were curfews and checkpoints, now there were fires lit at every street corner, not of war, but of celebration. The rebels no longer wore masks. Children danced in the squares. Musicians, long silenced, played again songs of flame and water, of oracles who said no, of princes who chose freedom over crowns. In the old temple courtyard, now reclaimed and renamed, the first flame gathering was held. Hundreds came, some born with the mark, some who never knew they had it until Kassai's fire touched the sky. They called themselves the Children of the Flame, not an army, a promise that no one born with power would ever again be taught to fear it. Kassai stood before them, bare-chested, the serpent sigil glowing softly over his heart. He didn't speak like a king. He didn't call himself a leader. He simply said, We were never meant to burn alone. And the crowd roared, not with worship, but with recognition. Ilyara watched from the steps of the old library, arms crossed, moonlight catching the silver ring still on her hand. She hadn't spoken much since the vault. The power in her had grown quiet, but not gone. It pulsed sometimes in her dreams, like a heartbeat echoing from the stars. She wasn't sure what she was anymore. Not just an oracle. Something other. A keeper. A flame reader. A woman who broke prophecy with a kiss and a key. Later, as the gathering died down, she found Kassai beneath the flowering moonvine trees. He was lying on a worn rug, arms folded behind his head, staring at the unchained sky. She joined him wordlessly. After a while, he asked, "Do you think they'd be proud?" She looked at him. "Who?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "The ones who came before. My brothers. The oracles they erased. The people whose names never made it past the chain." She turned her gaze upward. The stars were scattered now, beautiful and unpredictable. "No," she said gently. "Not proud." He raised an eyebrow. She smiled. Grateful. And maybe, finally at peace. They lay in silence. Until Kassai turned on his side. "You never told me what you saw at the bottom of the vault." "Before we left." She was quiet. "Then, I saw us. Not as rulers. Not as legends. Just people. Laughing. Growing old. Sitting by a fire that didn't ask for anything." He chuckled. "That sounds suspiciously like a happy ending." She nudged him with her shoulder. "It's not the end. It's just a world that finally lets us choose." Far away, at the edge of the western dunes, a figure stood cloaked in storm silk robes. Arima. Alive. Watching. Waiting. Not to rebuild the chain, but to see what rises in its place. She turned away from the glowing sky and whispered to herself, "If the fire can free them, it can burn them too." Back in Kyra, a child born that night opened her eyes that shimmered with both silver and flame. And as the wind carried her first cry into the stars, the ninth link of the chain, long missing, was never replaced. Chapter 23. What the Stars Forgot. The stars didn't fall anymore. But they shifted. Not in patterns, not in prophecies, just in memory. Like they were trying to remember themselves. Ilyara noticed it first. She lay awake most nights, no longer burdened by visions, but not entirely free of them either. Her dreams were quieter now, yes. But sometimes, as she drifted near sleep, the sky would whisper, not in words, not even in sound, but in pull, like something was calling her from deep in the firmament. Not danger, not warning, curiosity. She climbed the roof of the old temple library one night and stared up at the sky alone. Kassai found her there, barefoot, wrapped in a storm gray shawl. "Couldn't sleep?" "I think the stars missed something," she murmured. He chuckled. "I didn't think they were sentimental." "They're not," she said. "But they remember." "Remember what?" She pointed upward. There, between the constellations, the ones the chain had once locked into place, were fractures. Tiny, jagged threads of silver where stars once connected but now floated free. "See that," she said. "That space used to be filled." There was a constellation there, one they erased entirely. Kassai frowned. "Why erase a single constellation?" She turned to him, voice barely above a whisper. "Because it named the one who could end them. Not a god. Not a king. A girl who said no." The next morning, she descended alone into the rebel archives. The tunnels beneath Kyra's eastern wall had once been water canals, but were now lined with scrolls, lost maps, fractured glyph tablets. She searched for hours. And then as she found it, a cracked slab of obsidian, wrapped in faded velvet, buried beneath star-sealed boxes. The glyph was clear, unmistakable. A single figure, arms spread wide, standing not beneath the stars, but above them. Her name was burned beneath it, Ilyara. Not the current Ilyara. Not her own handwriting, but ancient. Thousands of years older than any chain record. She brought it to Kassai. He touched it reverently, fingers running along the fracture line. "You were always part of this." "No," she said quietly. "We both were." The chain didn't just bind the stars. It buried the past. She looked at him, eyes burning soft silver. "What if we weren't the first to break the prophecy?" He raised an eyebrow. "What if we're the first to survive it?" That night, the stars danced again. Not in unison, not in obedience, but like embers on wind, free, wild, beautiful. And a new constellation appeared in the western sky. A serpent made of flickering points, coiling around a smaller shape. A woman, not crowned, not chained, just standing, watching. Maare saw it too. From her rooftop forge, she whispered, "The serpent has found its keeper again." Ilyara watched the stars from her window. And beneath her breath, to no one but the sky, she said, "What you forgot. We remember now." Far off, in the ruins of an abandoned observatory, an old machine groaned back to life. Its gears turned, its mirrors realigned, and on a sheet of copper-plated star map, a name reappeared, etched in glowing script no hand had written: The Flame Unwritten. Chapter 24. The Flame Unwritten. They called it the Flame Unwritten. A prophecy with no record. A future not carved into the chain. A spark that refused to burn on command. It began with a letter, left on Ilyara's windowsill, sealed with melted gold. The parchment bore no name, only a phrase. There is one vault left, one flame never claimed. Come alone. She knew who sent it, and she knew what it meant. Kassai watched her pack the essentials: moonstone dust, memory salts, the silver ring she no longer wore but still carried in her pocket. "You're not going alone," he said flatly. "I have to." He folded his arms. "We've done this before. We know how that ends." She looked at him, not with defiance, but with sorrow. "This time, I'm not walking into fire. I'm walking into what comes after it." He stepped forward, gently brushing his hand along her jaw. "You're not just flame now." "No," she whispered. "I'm the part they tried to erase. The part that was never written." By dawn, she stood at the edge of the sunken veil, an ancient crater where once, long before the chain, a crown of living flame fell from the sky and buried itself deep beneath the earth. It was said that no one could survive its heat. No one ever returned. But Ilyara was no longer anyone. She was everything they forgot. The crater was silent. Rings of scorched trees surrounded the edge like a crown of ash. In the center, a single pillar of smoke curled upward, whispering like a dying god. She descended slowly. Her boots sank into burnt soil. The sky above pulsed gold-red as a strange eclipse shimmered behind the clouds, not one the chain had recorded. A new one. At the bottom, she found it. A pool of still fire. Not flame. Not lava. Just memory in heat form, simmering gently beneath a thin veil of ash. She stepped toward it. "I'm not here to claim you," she said. "I'm here to ask." The fire responded, not with heat, but with form. It rose, swirling, into a mirror of herself. Not a copy, not an echo, but a possibility. A version of her that had accepted prophecy, that had sat upon the chain's throne, that had let Kassai die to keep the stars still. They stared at one another. "You walked away," the other Ilyara said. "And you burned the map, because I was never meant to follow it." They circled each other, slow and reverent. "Then what are you here to do?" "Write a new one." She stepped into the fire, and it embraced her, not as a weapon, not as a ruler, but as a keeper, a steward of the unwritten. The last flame did not burn her. It marked her. A single glowing line spiraled down her arm, like a living glyph. A story that could not be erased. A name that would never be forgotten again. She emerged hours later, skin glowing faintly, as not starlit anymore, but human. Real. Clear. Alive. Kassai waited at the top of the veil, pacing. He turned as she climbed the ridge, his breath catching as he saw her. "What did you find?" She took his hand and whispered, "I found the future. And it's not prophecy. It's us." They stood there together, watching the stars swirl into strange new shapes above them. Somewhere distant, someone would write about that night. Not in stone, not in fire, but in voice, and in choice, and in hope. Chapter 25. When the flame is free. The fire did not vanish. It simply changed shape. Weeks passed. The chain of heaven remained broken, 8 links shattered, the 9th left hanging, untethered. The priest who survived faded into silence. The final temple, once the seat of starlit power, was abandoned, its halls echoing with wind instead of chants. And Kyra? Kyra was reborn. Not with rulers, but with voices. There was no throne. Kassai had it dismantled, stone by stone, the same way the chain had once unmade memory. He led no court. He signed no laws. Instead, he taught. Children with fire in their blood came from the dunes and cities and high mountain paths to learn how to carry their heat without fear. He taught them not to burn, but to choose. He taught them how to be human. Ilyara didn't return to the Tower of Silence. She returned to herself. In a chamber beneath the old observatory, she began rewriting the sky book, the tome once used to record the fates of kings and rebels. Only now, it was blank, and every name inside it was written by choice. Not fate. Some days, they barely spoke. They didn't need to. Their mornings were slow. Warm bread and fire-roasted dates. The hum of quiet wind. The weight of her head on his chest. The sound of his laughter when she teased him about growing a beard again. They had stopped surviving. They had started living. One evening, Kassai returned late from the training circle. His palms were soot-stained, his tunic soaked in sweat. Ilyara sat on the balcony, brushing ash from an old tapestry. "Another fire duel?" she asked. He flopped beside her. "I told them to meditate. They built a flame tower instead." She chuckled. "Sounds familiar." "Little monsters," he said. "Just like me. Exactly like you." He turned to her. "I don't deserve this." She met his eyes. "You don't have to." A long silence passed. Then, softly, he asked, "Do you still see visions?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No more stars telling me what I'm supposed to be. Just dreams about who I might become." That night, they walked barefoot through the restored garden. Moovine had begun to bloom again, coiling up broken archways, silver petals glowing soft under starlight. The sky overhead was not perfect. Some constellations had returned. Others were gone forever. But it was real. Alive. Free. Kassai stopped beside the broken statue of the Serpent King, half reconstructed with soft desert glass. "Do you ever think," he murmured, "that the gods are watching?" Ilyara tilted her head. "No," she said. "I think the gods are listening." "To what?" She turned to him. "To us." Finally, in the distance, a fire flickered. Not war. Not prophecy. Just a hearth. And laughter. And two voices softly humming a tune no temple ever taught. In time, legends would grow. They'd call her the Phoenix Oracle. They'd call him the Flame Unbound. They'd turn the truth into myth, and the myth into song. But those who were there? They would remember the real ending. Not with a crown. Not with chains. Not with fire rising high into the sky. But with hands held. With a kiss under a scattered sky. And with a choice made, again and again. To be free. And to never forget what the fire taught them. Across every empire, every forgotten age, stories still whisper. If this tale stirred your spirit, leave a like to honor the echoes of the past. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice weaves a new legend into the sands of time. And subscribe to our YouTube channel Historical Fantasy Stories, where myths walk beside history, and every discovery changes the world. The next forgotten legend is waiting to be found.